Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And CCP has been releasing all the EVE Vegas stuff on their YouTube channel. Now, I highly already recommend the EVE Online keynote, of course, and the game development keynote, which was very, very interesting, where CCP talked a little bit about features that they are planning or looking into. So nothing hard, nothing really concrete, but I do want to mention the NPC changes that they've basically been planning or that they're using. It sounded really interesting, and as we know, the new mining NPC mining fleets are basically phase one of this operation. Now, a lot of people, I think sometimes, no, I shouldn't say a lot of people, some people in the comments said that, you know, this is just to drive people into nullsec by tanking their standings and things like that, or it's so limited in scope, it's only in bells at the moment. And it's true, it's pretty limited in scope, but you have to see this as a first step towards a much more engaging and interesting PvE content. And so first of all, I think we should mention that they are of course also planning to have similar fleets going for the pirate factions, which would basically give you an opportunity to still go after that loot, go after that combat aspect of the PvE, even if you want to stay in highsec and remain in good standings with the empires, which is personally what at first phase I would also like to do. So I'm not going to attack NPC mining operations from the empires, because I want to be able to fly anywhere in EVE Online, also in all highsec spaces, so I want to stay in good standings with them. But going after some pirate fleets could actually be pretty interesting. But what was more interesting was the future plans about that. And what I liked a lot was that if they could do it, right, all of this is of course up in the air, all of this subject to change, but they might see these NPCs haul or all their ores to like a manufacturing facility. Let's hope it's a destroyable one, but there they might start building up forces. And here I'm seeing at least the potential of a system that we've seen announced in a lot of other games, but that has never really come into a functional system that worked the way it was intended. So let me give you an example for the new Warhammer MMO. I haven't played it, so I'm not sure if it's working as intended or not, but the idea there was that the Tyrannid faction would be an NPC faction that would basically always balance out the sides and create content for people in order to keep things balanced a little bit. And so I can see CCP trying to create these new NPC factions into self-sustaining, fully automated, of course, groups, but that would also try to build up forces, build up outposts, maybe even try to attack systems next door. And so you could actually have a little bit of like NPC conflict along the highsec lowsec border between pirates and between the empire factions, but also possibly between the pirate factions amongst themselves, and then with game mechanics that should allow players to help out their favorite factions. So you could start attacking NPC mining fleets from the pirates in order to disrupt their abilities to build up. But if you don't do that for a long time, they may, for instance, build up such a massive force and start a form of an incursion or something like that. I mean, you can already imagine that if CCP really does continue developing along those lines, it could actually be a very interesting and potential PvE feature. And yeah, they have said that they want their PvE to be more like PvP, and I personally think that fits very well within the sandbox experience. So I'm seeing a lot of potential here. I think we should give this the necessary time, also the necessary testing, and yeah, to try and engage with these new NPCs as much as possible. I understand that if you're like me, you don't want to tank your empire standings, then of course you're not going to help out a lot in destroying these mining fleets. But hopefully when the pirates come out, we can maybe try to organize small fleets, go after those, and thus get engaged in that new PvE or NPC content. I think it sounds very interesting, and I actually think it has a lot more potential than some people give it credit for. So that's what I wanted to share. You know, that's really been at the back of my mind since watching those keynotes. But we are here for the market, of course, so let's jump in here. We'll move on to some plex stuff at around 5 minutes. a little bit later, but we'll get it to work. So here are plex. A little bit of hesitation. I've actually been keeping a close eye on plex pretty much every day in the last week or so. I've been able to sell at 1260 and 1265, I think it was, but never at 1270. So that does seem to be very difficult to get rid of some plex at those prices. And if you look at the chart here, which for the first one, we still have to reset that to a 6-month chart. So there we go. You can see a little bit of hesitation at the tail end. And so the real question is going to be, is this 1.23 on the chart? It's actually 1.26. Around this range is where it's been hovering all week. Now we all of a sudden have quite a bit of supply coming in. That's bringing the price down a little bit. Will this be the top, or can we expect a bit of a double top to be created when the Ascension expansion comes out? So I still think that that's a possibility, but I will be honest as well. I've already sold 8 or 9 plex at this point from my 19 plex investment in total. So I'm almost halfway there. I still keep an eye on it. I'm going to see if we get back towards the 1260, 1270 range. Then I'll try to unload a few more. And of course, I'll keep a close eye on the expansion itself. If we have a final bump up, let's say 1280, 1285, I'm definitely unloading as much of the rest as I feel comfortable with. I'll always keep a couple of plex just in case I have need of those, but I think I'll try to unload most. Once we get to like 1280, 1285, something like that, I'm probably pulling the trigger. So the next 2 weeks could be very interesting for the plex market. And right now, what I'm seeing is a little bit of hesitation for the price to go even higher. Multiple pilot training certificate should mirror this a little bit. Yes, it does. Yeah, you can clearly see the hesitation here. The high point has in fact been 1.28 billion, and now we're going back down again a little bit to 1.20. Still, you can sell these for 1,272,000 here on the sellers, but less than 1.2 billion for the buyers. Maybe a quick look at the buyers for plex, 1.2 billion. So it's possible that we'll be going down, or that we're hesitating a little bit, but everything I think is going to depend on the Ascension expansion itself. We'll have to see how this will affect the price of plex and these training certificates. The pilot's body resculpt next, similar chart actually, a bit of a bump up to 400 million, then going back down here to around 300 million. Sellers are at 379 million and the buyers are at 287. Of course, we do have not really the volume spike, but we basically were empty of these training certificates here, which caused the massive bump here all of a sudden. Someone started relisting them at a much higher price, but we've recovered a lot of that. On the other hand, we're still paying 300 million pretty much for a body resculpt on average, so it's looking pretty good. I also think that possibly with a lot of alpha players, if we can bring in a lot of new players to EVE Online, this could become a bump for the body resculpts as well, because they might at some point decide that they want to create their character of their choice. Exactly, which when you first play a game, you never really know how to create a character to your exact likings, depending on the game and things like that. So this one I think could actually still go up a little bit as well if the alpha clones become a big success. Skill extractors next. We should have something. Oops, we'll actually go for the 6-month chart on this one as well. So the reason for this, you could say it's a bug, but the reason for the difference in scale all of a sudden is because skill extractors have not existed for a year yet. Once they do, it's all going to be fixed, of course. So going up in tandem with plex up to a high point of around 300 million, falling back a little bit to 290 million. 292 million for the sellers, 276 for the buyers, and you can still see that we have like a full front page of new ones, 60, 50, 55 here, another 46 as the latest one. They keep coming in, so the supply of these is still extremely high. Skill injectors could be a bit more interesting, but for the first time in a long time, so after the summer, you can see that we slumped down. During this time, plex actually increased in price pretty drastically. So we had a bottom here at a strange time of 550 million. I think I said that this could be a pretty good investment, and look at that, we went up to 640 million. But just like plex, now in tandem, we're hesitating a little bit and going back down just a touch to 630 million. So the sellers are at 640 and the buyers are at 613 million. This would have been a pretty good investment right here to buy at this drop off. Unfortunately, I said that I was keeping my ISK for the blueprints of the Ascension expansion itself, which, looking back at it, I should actually have invested a little bit of ISK because I've been selling plex, and so I'm sitting pretty good with around 16 billion in cash at the moment. So in fact, I'm sort of looking for the next set of investments, and I've been doing a little bit, not a lot, a couple 100 million in moon minerals, or moon products, I should say, advanced moon materials. So yeah, that's it for these guys. A little bit of hesitation, so it's going to be interesting to see if we can actually get a double top or a second increase in price after the expansion or not. Next up, we have actual minerals. That's going to be at 11 minutes. Let's take a look at those. Interestingly enough, you may already have seen from the ticker below that the plex prices, and let's get the right chart, plex, the titanium prices, 6 months like that, have gone up a little bit. So we have a median daily price of, yeah, it doesn't round, it rounds to actual ISK numbers, but sellers are at 640, 641, definitely going up a little bit. Buyers at 613, forced up a little bit as well. And if you look at the demand here, 1.5 billion, 300 million, a billion here, half a billion here, still around 2 billion, a bit more than that in the last 24 hours. Not that bad. On the seller side, of course, as we've increased in price, people have started to come in with fresh supply here, 670 million, 500 million, 600 million. So it feels really balanced, but you have to keep in mind, of course, we did just jump up in price a little bit towards 6.4 ISK for titanium on the seller side. So this is probably why we're seeing this higher supply. But good news for titanium, up a little bit. Hopefully this is the first sign that we have increased activity since the summer, and thus that we will start seeing the other minerals go up as well, because titanium has been doing decently, except for the fall off here towards 5 ISK. That was a little bit painful, but the 6.4 is definitely a reasonable price for titanium. 7 ISK historically is a very good price for titanium, for instance. But all the other ones, like pyrite, have been doing really poorly and are still doing poorly. Holy crap. 8 ISK here on just below that, in fact. If you look at this, that's pretty crazy. Pyrite still under pressure, definitely at a 6-month low here. So 830 for the sellers, 823 for the buyers. Very, very low price for pyrite. And unfortunately, right, volume still going down a little bit. I'm not seeing any signs of this changing, and I'm honestly very close to pulling the trigger and actually just starting to straight up buy some pyrite. 820 for pyrite, when you can normally sell this for 10 to 11 ISK. That shouldn't be a problem for pyrite if it manages to claw back. It's interesting, definitely a 6-month low. So if you're looking to invest in minerals, pyrite starts to look very, very interesting, because the continued pressure here is on. Supply demand wise, supply we have, well, we do have almost a full front page. It's 70 million, 40 million, 62 million, something like that. As the biggest numbers on the demand side, 340 million, 100 million, 200 million, half a billion, although not that many new buy orders coming in. So market is basically going down in volumes a little bit, down in interest. If this picks up with the Ascension expansion, this could be a pretty good investment. So I have some stocks because I've not been selling during this entire period, but considering where we're headed now, I think it could almost be good to invest in those. Next up, we've got Mexalon. So that one clawed back, but you can see a bit of hesitation at the end here as well. Did manage to go above 70 ISK for a bit, which is a really good price for Mexalon, definitely sell worthy. And at the moment, sellers are at 68.9 to 69.1, so not bad. definitely a good price for the Mixelon that you're mining. Buyers are at 65 ISK, so a bit of margin. The one worrying thing is that you do see here sellers 35 million, 17 million, 18 million. In the last few days we have decent supplies on the demand side. It's 13 million, 15 million, and then you have to go back quite a little bit to 64 ISK for 50 million units. So we are in a slightly oversupplied situation for Mixelon. It's under pressure, but it's under pressure when we come from 70 ISK and more, which is a pretty damn good price. So I think mining for Mixelon and selling that at the moment, if you want to turn your mining efforts straight into ISK, is probably a decent way to do that. Mine your Mixelon and maybe sell your Titanium as well, which is back towards 6.4, which is definitely okay. So the other one that was not doing well is Isogen. And yeah, again, going back to 6-month low below 80 ISK here, 77 on average, 76 on average in the last week. This is not good. Hasn't really managed to claw back above 80 ISK on the average sell prices. Yeah, 76.75 for the seller. Latest order it's a pretty small one, but it's noticeable that the entire front page here is below 80 ISK at this point. And the buyers are at 75.71, so it is closing, right? We're definitely approaching bottom prices, 6-month low prices. But if you take a look at the entire 1-year chart, look at where we come from. 114, 120 as a good price, but definitely above 100 ISK or close to 100 ISK should be a possibility. To see us drop below 80 ISK once again is a sign of a lot of pressure in these high-sec mineral markets here. And hopefully the Ascension expansion can turn this around. Now I would like to see this drop towards 70 ISK, right? Buyers towards 70 ISK, which means that they're, well, that's not a lot, 11 million, 8 million here, a couple more million here. It's not that many buy orders that need to drop, and you can try to pick this up below 70 ISK. Then I'm definitely jumping in myself as well with a couple of buy orders. Next up we've got Noxium here. Whoa, also pulling back down below 400 ISK. Sellers are at 404 ISK, buyers at 376. Again, very low. I'm always pretty hesitant when it comes to Noxium because it is like a unique mineral in the sense that you can get it from high-sec in massive quantities. You can get it from null-sec and wormhole space. From everywhere you will have sources of Noxium, and so unfortunately this could also be a result of the changes to the Rorcal, which I think has put a lot of pressure on all null-sec minerals. So I would not say that it is that we're also seeing 6-month low. It's very similar to Isogen here, and Isogen, right? I'm definitely hoping. God damn it, Isogen here. Why is it showing mixed sites? The Isogen chart, but I think that Noxium is much more at risk of staying low because of the Rorcal changes. It's a lot easier to justify putting a Rorcal on Noxium than putting a Rorcal on Isogen, for instance. So I think that this is much more risky than saving up or trying to invest a little bit in Isogen and in Pyrite, which are both really, really low. Next up we've got the null-sec minerals. So here is Zydrine. You can see the pressure from the Rorcal announcement. We're going down to an average price of 950 ISK, which is definitely pretty low. Sellers are at 960, buyers are at 953, and this decrease in price that you're seeing here, I think from this point out here, has been the Rorcal changes because of the massive ability of them to mine if they're willing to risk the Rorcal. But I think in some safe pockets this will indeed mean much more mining, and their first target will always be stuff like Zydrine and Megasite. So unfortunately quite under pressure. I did buy during this period here, August, September, because I felt that close to 1050 ISK or below 1100 was already a pretty good price. Of course, I could not expect a boost of that size for the Rorcal, but I've always said that I've bought these minerals to be able to use them as well, so not as an investment. So I don't think that I'm actually losing a lot on that, although of course it's a bit of a loss considering that we're this much lower all of a sudden. And then Megasite, you're seeing a pretty similar chart, except that much more violent here, going from almost 1300 ISK to 1000 ISK. Yeah, losing 30% just like that in a couple of weeks is quite painful, and so here we're definitely bumping on this 1000 ISK bottom here, bit of hesitation or a bit of a pullback with averages heading back towards 1100 on a single day. So Megasite is seemingly finding a bottom already at 1000 ISK, pretty much, right? 1086 for the sellers, 985 for the buyers. For Zydrine, it's a bit slower, but it's also a bit more constant. So we're still definitely below the 20-day moving average, and the median daily prices are now breaking 950. So there is, I think, a little bit of potential for Zydrine to go even lower. Megasite is probably going to try to stay above 1000 ISK. And finally, we have Morphite, 8,600 for the sellers, 8,200 for the buyers, except for one person that's buying 1,000 of these to be sure that they have them. Yeah, very low prices here once again. So you can see the pressure here has been on. This bump up here, this massive bump up to 22,000 ISK, was from the Citadel expansion. So will the Ascension expansion mean a big war, loss of Tech 2 ships? Then Morphite could be an amazing investment. Yeah, I have so much ISK now because of the selling of the plexes. I'm going to move a little bit on Morphite, couple 100 million again. As I always say, don't put all your eggs in one basket, which I actually did last year in Plex, and it definitely came back to bite me because I had to wait a whole year to be able to sell at a little bit of profit on those that I bought then. So always remember, don't put all your ISK or eggs in a single basket. But Morphite here, I think, is definitely worth a look to buy a couple on some buy orders here, right? Try 8,500, 8,400, 8,300. I think if you don't go overboard with the quantities, that you'll be able to pick that up. And I think I'm going to try to build up a stock of Morphite myself as well on my next JITA visit. Next up, PI, right, at 2140. Let's take a look at that. So PI is generally considered pretty safe. It comes from Planets, just in case some newer people are starting to watch Eve Talk. It's been a very interesting market because, as we can see here on this chart, for instance, for construction blocks, PI in general has had a very strong summer with very high prices pretty much across the board. Now, a part of this can be explained due to the Citadel expansion that was launched in May, because a lot of PI had to be used in the creation of citadels, and it's the same with the engineering complexes that are coming out. So this definitely is one explanation for the high prices of PI. Another possibility is just that it is a seasonal thing where lower activity actually decreases supply enough that you can command higher prices for PI during the summer. And if that's the case, it's definitely something that we'll need to keep an eye on as the year and the expansion comes out. Activity increases. Are we seeing decreased prices? And then through the summer, are we seeing increased prices again? This could turn out to become like an investment opportunity if it's more a seasonal thing and not a Citadel expansion related thing. So that's, I think, the interesting angle for PI at the moment. But across the board here, we can see that construction blocks are still going for 1400 ISK on the seller side, 1330 for the buyers. Definitely a pretty good price, especially if you look at the entire 1 year chart. We're definitely at high ranges at the moment. Consumer electronics next. A little bit of a fallback here, but we can see that we tested a very low bottom of below 11,000 ISK, but that was snagged up by an investor pretty quickly. Huge volumes all of a sudden, pushing the price back. So we're still under pressure a little bit, but median prices are 12,500 pretty much. Sellers are still at 13,000 ISK, which is actually a good price for consumer electronics. Next up here we've got coolants. Again, you can see the very strong summer here with a high point of almost 15,000 ISK median daily price. We're still holding at 12.3. On the 1 year chart you can see we're a bit above average, but not by that much anymore. 12,500 ISK for the sellers. It's okay, it's not great, but the good news is of course that demand is quite strong at 12.260. So I think it's still looking pretty strong for coolants here. I think the higher fuel requirements for the engineering complexes could actually support this market a little bit more. So we're a little bit above average, not as much as construction blocks, that's pretty obvious, but it's still a very respectable price for coolant at the moment. I've had to sell coolants for less than 10k at some point, so when I was lazy or impatient. Enriched uranium next, let's take a look here again. You can see the very strong August, September, a peak at 17.35 thousand ISK, not bad. Still going for 14,500 on the 1 year chart. You can clearly see that we're well above average. Sellers at almost 15,000 ISK, buyers 14,500 ISK. So very strong enriched uranium market. Definitely good to produce and sell. Unfortunately for investments, it's probably the wrong time to look for those in PI. Again, mechanical part actually going to 6-month highs here. The high point was just a couple of days or weeks ago, 27.10. Yeah, that's like a week ago, a bit more, at 12.4k. Now dropping back to around 11,000 ISK on average. But again, look at the 1 year chart. We're definitely at a pretty high point and above average. 10.5, but that's just a small order. Let's say 11,000 ISK for the sellers and 10,000 ISK for the buyers. Still not bad. Mechanical parts very, very easy to produce on barren planets. All you need is a single planet for that. Barren, pretty common as well. So it's actually a good price considering the commonality and ease of production of mechanical parts. Oxygen next, it's a P1. Keep this in mind, although it's used in fuel production. And what we can see after a bit of a drop off here, but once again towards 400 ISK, we have massive increase in volumes, pulling the price back towards 543. So 555 for the sellers, not that much demand, but 527, someone is still trying to pick it up. So the oxygen market is a little bit more volatile apparently, probably because of the lower price range, but yet again we can see here after a bit of a slump here, we're back well above average towards pretty high price points for oxygen. Not bad. Robotics next, it's the exact opposite. So oxygen is one step less complex than mechanical parts, uranium and coolants that we've checked before. Robotics is one step more complex. So this is definitely higher in price, like 100,000 ISK a piece here. Median daily price again at a pretty high point just a couple of days ago. At around 100,000 ISK. Sellers are at 210,000 ISK. Buyers are at 100,000 ISK. So there's definitely strong demand even at these prices. And again, if you look at the 1 year chart here, where we come from, we are definitely above average and in a very, very strong summer and fall so far for robotics. Rocket fuels next. It's a little bit less pronounced here. The stronger summer. I think there's also a little bit of a bug on the chart because the median daily prices are just all over the place constantly. But what we can see here at the end here is a bit of a trend up on the 5-day moving average towards 12.5 thousand ISK. Yep, 12.7 for the sellers, 11.7 for the buyers. Again, rocket fuel, decently strong market. And on the full 1 year chart, you can again see that we're ending here at a pretty strong note. Self-harmonizing power core. It's gonna be a little bit weird, this one, because we can see the high point in June, which is due to the Citadel expansion, because this is an advanced PI material that's used in the construction of citadels. So the high point was 5.4 million pretty much. We slumped down to 1.9 million, which is actually pretty much an average price. And here now we're still commanding 2.6 million. So we're falling back a little bit, but it's definitely still a really good price for these power cores. Superconductors next, again very similar because it's used in citadels and in the new structures. We have this peak in May-June, but for this one actually very strong finish towards 15,000 ISK here. Yeah, looking pretty good again. Sellers 16.2 thousand ISK, buyers at 15,000 ISK. So superconductors again, it's a refine, so we go from materials. Oh, actually it doesn't show the mid steps, but considering the price 15,000 ISK towards coolants, this is actually probably buildable, decently easily buildable, but again very strong price here at the moment if you can make and sell these. Looking for an investment, I would say it's very tricky. Test cultures, right? It tried twice to go to a low price. 6,500 is here, 6,500 is here, but yet again we can see that, especially on the latest one, higher volumes increase the price back towards 9,200 ISK, which is just average, right? Test cultures probably the weakest of these PI materials so far. 10,000 ISK for the sellers, 9,000 ISK for the buyers. So this is just around average, an okay price for test cultures, but I wouldn't blame you if you hold on for a better opportunity later down the line. All the other ones though, I think are looking pretty strong. Weightware mainframes, here we may want to increase the scale just a little bit to show that once again this is a PI material, 4-5 million at a peak, 4.4 million that is used in Citadel expansions. This one is also probably a little bit less violent with a bottom at 2.2 million because it has been a strong bottleneck. So I was there when I needed weightware mainframes for my Citadels and we were out. These were going for completely crazy prices at one point. These are just average prices, right? But I've seen these guys, I think, selling for 5 and 6 million as well. And so this one has not had the opportunity to fall back a little bit because there's basically less supply of that, I think. And so here we can actually see that we're ending at 2.7 to 3 million. Sellers are still at 2.8 million, a bit above that in fact, and the buyers at 2.6 million. So definitely slightly stronger price for weightware mainframes than the self-harmonizing power cores. But in my experience, it's really been a bit of a bottleneck in the Citadel expansion, the Citadel production. So that could be a reason why weightware mainframes has a bit of a stronger market and also a lower bottom than self-harmonizing power cores, for instance. So yeah, PI markets, I think it's definitely a strong market at the moment if you can produce and sell, but looking for investment opportunities, I think we're gonna have to see if we're talking seasonal changes here. Next up, Tech 1 chips, 31, 35. I chose a different range of Tech 1 chips this time. So normally I switch out every week, but last week Thrasher was pretty interesting, so I kept them a couple of weeks to keep an eye on it. I actually didn't notice anything too drastic, so let's just dive right in. Here is the Apocalypse, actually going up in price a little bit, but only 290 million. So it's basically a normalization. Yeah, 188, 42 of them coming in here as well. Decent supply, very low demand has been the name of the game. For Tech 1 chips, it's actually good to see a little bit of a pull back up in price. Could indicate more activity, more demand in general. So first one here, Apocalypse, although it is a battleship, that's not exactly in the meta at the moment. Slightly up in price, but only to 190. Next up here we've got the Breacher. That's a frigate, actually down in price, just like the Tristan, 400,000 ISK, not a lot. Definitely below its average at the moment. Yeah, the average price has been around 550,000 ISK. Sellers are at 407 ISK, buyers at 400,000 ISK, 407,000 here for the sellers. Very small margin, that's quite surprising. We can also see very strong supply and demand actually very old, so not a lot is moving there. Yeah, Breacher under pressure, exact opposite of the Apocalypse. Next up, we've got the Catalyst here, up in price slightly, not on increased volumes, quite interesting, going for around 1.25 to 1.3 million. Sellers are at 1.25, couple coming in here, not that many, 262 here is 1.3 million. Buyers are at 1 million. Again, for a Catalyst, right, which is actually supposed to be something that you'll use in gangs, I'm surprised by the low number of buy orders here, the low demand at the moment. So slight uptick in price, but we'll need a bit more time to see if this is actually structural across time and across all the Tech 1 ships. Cormorant next here, basically just average. Here we could definitely try to increase the view of the chart a little bit like that, but basically there's not much to say. Slightly on the low end at 1.1 million. Excuse me, but definitely basically very stable and actually okay market in volume, 682 of them coming in here, but you can see here 140, 112, and demand here is actually a full front page, or practically a full front page. So yeah, if there is higher demand, then we can see that it immediately tends to stabilize the chart here. Next up, we've got the crucifier. That is strange. Is there a missing data point or something? Let's see if we can increase the volatility just a little bit, then push this back down a little bit. Like that is what we should normally see, although again the scale is going to be abysmally small. We can see that we are basically at a low point here again, under pressure. So are we seeing supply, low demand? Yes, we are. There we go. So we are seeing some supply coming in at 286,000 ISK. Demand is at 260,000 ISK, but it's just very low. And lack of demand, it's bad chart here, but lack of demand means a bit more volatility, but at the moment pressured on the downside. The Mahler chart next here, a bit of a strange data point to go for 16.8 million for a Mahler. That's pretty crazy, but yeah, the average price 11.2 million right here. Decently stable chart, I would say, except for this one erroneous data point or weird data point. Means yeah, basically less supply, not a lot of demand, but it's a bit more balanced, and so you get a more balanced picture here as well. I'm surprised. I would think that there'd be more Mahlers, but just basically, yeah, very low volume market here at the moment. Hopefully the alpha clones can bring some changes to that. Here's the Naga. Starts at 70. Is that 70 million? Oh yeah, it's a battle cruiser. Starts at 70 million, ends at, well, 63 million. So definitely a bit lower than average, under pressure here as well at the tail end. When it comes to supply demand, we have decent supply and actually also slightly better demand here, which means that unfortunately Naga is under pressure, but at least in the last few months since the summer, we've been able to maintain a decently consistent price range. Next up, we've got the Retriever, dropping down in price quite drastically despite volumes going up here all of a sudden. So low point 24 million for a Retriever. I think this could be lack of demand. It's definitely playing a part, but it could also be people that are dumping some Retrievers as they're planning to use more Orcas. I actually think that despite the bumping problems that a lot of people are mentioning in the Orca mining idea, that it will still be used quite a lot, because if you really want to, you can also start bumping Mackinaws and Hulks and things like that. It's easier to do on an Orca, but it's also doable on the other mining barges. So next up here we've got the Scythe. Again, pretty stable, around 9 million. Sellers are at 9.5, buyers 8.1. At least there is decent supply, right? 142, 20, 10, decent volume of sellers, but also decent demand. Look at that, going up to 8.1 million. There is some competition here, which again makes for a bit of a more stable chart. Next up here we've got the Talos Battlecruiser. That is interesting. Very sharp increase up to 97 million on a median daily price. Where are the sellers at? This is the danger of low volume markets, is that a single player could come in, basically purchase the remaining, how many would that be? 50, maybe 80 Taloses from the market, and then start relisting here. And for a Talos, it's a more recent ship than most of the others, so it may be a bit trickier to plug that supply gap. But I think by next week that we will of course see a major influx of Taloses coming in, people trying to ride that wave of the market being empty of Taloses. Unfortunately, yeah, medium, well, 23, 20, 38, you could definitely bring some Taloses to market and hope to sell them. But the abysmal demand meant that at some point we got so low in supply prices, in supply volumes, that basically a couple of players or one player could buy 80 of them. And here we go, massive bump in price all of a sudden, because there are no more Taloses available on the market. Next up here we've got the Tempest, very stable actually at around 180 million. Not much to say, except again, low supply, low demand. If someone decides to buy 20-30 Tempests, we're out, and we could see that massive bump up. But if the response is fast enough, like it usually is, in the Talos market will drop right back in a matter of a week, maybe even just days. So the Tech 1 market, unfortunately, at the moment is very low volume, low supply, low demand, decently stable, but as you can see here from the Talos, for instance, it can also easily be manipulated into strange price ranges all of a sudden. So I think that this one will actually become very interesting with the alpha clones, especially on the smaller ships. We could actually start to see a lot more demand, maybe volatility in some of these markets. Next up, Tech 2 markets, 39.45 sounds good. And let's take a look at these here. We'll quickly go over them because unfortunately we can see right here on the Basilisk, for instance, that it is basically a pretty flat chart lacking volatility. I'm hoping for a big gnosis war. The winter war is usually a thing in EVE Online, so let's hope that they make that happen and that we can see some actual volatility here. But outside of looking for maybe investment opportunities, we can see bottoms of around 190 million for the Basilisks. I'm not really that interested in the Tech 1 market, Tech 2 market at the moment. Here's the broadsword. I know that this one was decently interesting just a couple of weeks ago here at 220 million as a buy opportunity. The buyers are at 220 million. You could still try to pick these up. Maybe I should also quickly look at that for the Basilisk. So we have bottoms of around 190 million median daily prices. Buyers are at around that range. So if you want to risk a Tech 2 investment, you could try buy orders of Basilisk and broadswords at the moment, but honestly I would prefer to see them a little bit lower. Here again for the Cerberus, bottoms are obviously 200 million. Here is 200 million, something like that. This is a little bit above that, but where are the buyers at? 201 million. Again, it's okay to try to buy these, but you're risking, you're hedging this bet if it's an investment on a gnosis war, basically. The Damnation next command ship is actually going to be a little bit higher in price. Current price range 350 million ISK. Very low demand at 320. Supply here 348. I'll be honest, if you would want to actually do a big gamble, then a command ship could actually be a pretty good one, because these might get flown and lost a lot more, primaried more. So these could actually become very, very important in major engagements. And if those happen, they get destroyed, they'll need to be replaced, which could mean a lot of money for Damnations. But again, it's a very risky bet and I'm not taking it at the moment. Here we have the Hound, very interesting median daily price of 16.5 million. Buyers are at 16.67. I think, stealth bombers tend to be something that gets flown in big fleets and get lost in big fleets. So this could be okay to move in. If I would have to choose so far from where would I put some ISK in, it would be buyer orders for Hounds. Next up here we've got the Kronos, of course, pretty stable in the tail end here, and again bottoms are actually 1.1 billion, so we're definitely nowhere near that. I wouldn't touch the Kronos market at the moment. Raptor next, an Interceptor. We can see low points at 22 million. I'd like to see this a little bit lower, honestly. If you can pick these up below 20 million, but that's quite a tall order, then it's definitely good to buy some Raptors, but at the moment I'm personally still hesitant. Saber here next, slowly going down in price as well. The buyers are at, come on, load up please, 44.8 million. Maybe, again, it's a dictator. It's a very important role in fleet fights, so they will get used and lost in case of a fight. Maybe I still prefer the Hound myself. Next up we've got the Stork, which is going to bug out the chart a little bit, and it's also a very bad chart here at the moment. We can see some volatility in the Stork with peaks up to 90 million and 81 million, bottoms at 60 million, but we're basically crawling out of the previous bottom. Buyers are at 57 million, maybe, but again, I'm reading this as very risky, to be honest. Here is the Widow next. Probably too expensive to risk a lot on this one, costing 1 billion. It's at a high point though. 1.1 billion is not impossible on the sellers. Buyers are at 1 million. Decent trade range, but it's a bit expensive for me to actually start risking that. So yeah, the Tech 2 market, some of them may be okay to move in on some buy orders, especially that Stealth Bomber looked pretty interesting. If the others are doing the same, I actually think it could be interesting. But again, that investment, that bet is hinging quite a lot on an actual Gnostic war, which is completely unpredictable, especially considering what we've seen in World War B, right? Bit of a flash in the pan, basically. Couple of really big fights, couple of really cool fights as well, but no long drawn out battle, and so not the huge losses, which can actually cause extreme volatility for longer periods of time in the Tech 2 markets. Next up, Tech 3 markets, 44... 45, all right, so 45, 45, 35, but okay. Let's start with the destroyers as usual here, the Confessor. My expectation has been that we'll basically start all of these destroyers to join in around similar average prices. So Confessor down a little bit to 46.5 million on average. Supply is almost a full front page here, quite a lot, in fact, 57, 17, 11 here. Averaging 47.7 million, 47 million basically at the bottom. So a little bit under pressure on the Confessor market here, but you could definitely get decent prices before. The Hecate next, median daily prices are up a little bit, but from 44 million up to 45 million. So this is in line with my expectation, and yeah, so the Confessor is going for a higher price. We get some oversupply in that. The Hecate is going for a lower price, so people are not bringing new Hecates, causing the price to increase a little bit. But I think basically with 230 here, 195 here, at 46 million, we are not going to suddenly run out of them or run the price up like crazy. Once the Confessor basically gets enough pressure, they're gonna start bringing Hecates back to the market. Next up here we've got the Jackdaw, which is median price 45 million. And here we should see a little bit less supply. Nope, still seeing a decent amount of supply, although 13, 16, 36, it's definitely less than the Confessor volumes where you have 57 and 38 coming in as well. So the Jackdaw selling for 46.4 million, but still slightly oversupplied. So it's difficult for the Jackdaw to actually crawl back. But of course Hecate was going for even lower than that. So I think it's okay. 45 to 46 million as the average price, I think, is where they'll be meeting. And finally here we've got the Zweppel, obviously under pressure, but towards 45 million, so we should see less supply. We still see decent supply, surprisingly high supply in fact, 64, 57 and 48 for the Zweppel. Full front page, that's quite surprising. This should put some extra pressure on the Zweppel price, but I think at some point this is going to start moving production towards the Hecate market. And yeah, 45 to 46 million actually seems to be the price range for the destroyers. Basically because of the oversupply, it's not as drastic as in the summer where you had this nice little bottom below 40 million on some of them. Great trade opportunity, but it is oversupplied and it's basically moving along the ships and it's slowly stabilizing all of these markets. So unfortunately, unless you expect a war with a lot of tactical destroyer destruction, I wouldn't advise an investment in this, especially because I think some of them, at least like the Zweppel, are in the crosshairs for a nerf, so that could actually be detrimental to their price ranges. Next up here we got the cruisers. Let's take a look here at the Legion chart, also under pressure a little bit towards 160 million. I think it's doing basically the same thing here, 150 million for the Loki. Proteus also going to be under pressure, I think. Let's take a look at that. Well, stabilizing at 160. And finally the Tengu as well, under pressure towards 160. And so here I think we should see decently similar supply across the board. Half a front page, around 30 of them. Proteus, not a lot, yeah, just 10 of them, so a little bit less supply, nothing too crazy. Here's the Loki supply, full front page, but yeah, look at that, 4, 2, 1, no orders of more than 10, so this is actually in line with the Tengu. And finally the Legion, again full front page, a little bit more, 158. Legion is under pressure a bit, definitely below average. So a slight oversupply in the Legion, which could actually move to the other Tech Tree ships. But in general, we have basically passed the volatility, which was a result, I think, from the very low bottoms we had during the summer in this Tech Tree market. We're basically in a stabilization phase. Of course, a gnosis war could throw all of this into interesting territory, but nerfs could actually do the exact opposite. So I would say that this is not a bet that you should take lightly. But if you had to do some investments, I would say Legion seems to be under pressure and oversupplied. You can probably pick those up a little bit cheaper than the rest. And it was the same for, was it the no, the Confessor was doing pretty high. I think the Zwepel actually looked quite a bit oversupplied with very low demand. So you could try to pick some of those up as well if you really want to. But as I've said, Zwepel might be in the crosshair for some nerfs. So cruisers, maybe, the destroyers, I'm not sure if I would go for those. And then finally, for the extra product, 50 minutes and 10 seconds we're gonna take for that. I'm going to check the Navy ships that are useful for alpha clones, so that means frigates and cruisers. So let's go, faction frigates, Navy faction frigates. Let's see if we can see an uptrend in these, which is what I would expect, right? I would expect these prices to go up. Here's the Caldari Navy hookbill, not really noticeable, maybe a slight uptick here from 11 million to 14 million. Sellers are at 14.3, but decent supply, decent demand as well. So I'm not seeing an alpha preparation bump here just yet. This one is a bit crazy, but other than that, it's basically apparently business as usual here. Federation Navy Comet next. Aha, this is more interesting. Definitely up in price quite drastically to 15 million. Here we used to be at 11-12 million on average. So Federation Navy Comet also see very low supply. Are we seeing increased volumes here on a couple of days for sure? Here as well for the first increase up to 14 million. Yeah, I think this could all be due to the alpha clones here. So Federation Navy Comet going for pretty high prices at the moment. Imperial Navy Slicer next, also up in price, but surprisingly enough already since July. So not seeing it that much, 14 to 13.5 million, looks quite okay. Here's where the high volumes are, here's where the low volumes are. Pretty crazy, you'd expect the exact opposite. One thing to note, of course, is that this could also be heavily tied to faction warfare. So it may be that it's not only alpha clones that dictate the price. So these low volumes but higher prices could indicate that basically the Amar faction warfare is not doing well, not able to grab a lot of supply or LP at the moment, or not willing to cash out LP at the moment. Republic Fleet Firetail actually at a low point here, going for pretty low prices with a big volume spike, 8 million on average. Sellers are at 9 million, definitely quite affordable for an alpha character. Oh, cluster shutdown initiated. How long? Do I still have an hour? I think I still have an hour, right? Hopefully. Yeah, 10, so it should be at 11. Okay, man, for a second there I thought I'd have to hurry up here, or that I was going to get shut down, but alright. So Crucifier, what the hell, 6 month chart please. Pretty stable again, not much to say. Griffin Navy issue, actually down in price. Yeah, this actually looks a lot like it's more going to be tied to the faction warfare variation. 16 million for the Maulus Navy issue. And then here we've got the Vigil Fleet issue, also decently stable and actually going down in price. So here I'm not really seeing it. What could be a place to look for increased price is of course the Navy faction cruisers, because some of those are probably like the best ships that alpha characters can fly. This increase in volume may be tied to that. Definitely an increase in price up to about 82 million. Currently selling for 55 million, but we've definitely recovered a little bit from this already. Still 40 million before this big volume bump, and then 55 million at the end. Maybe due to that. Caracal Navy issue, that should be one, but it's not. Look at that. went up to 90 million, but already dropping back down to 64 million, which is its normal average. Pretty crazy. I would have thought these, at least some speculators would move on these. Exec rare Navy issue next. Nope, nothing special to report. 58 million, okay average price. Omen Navy issue. What are you doing? Definitely going up in price, 72.28 million, but again it's an MR ship. We also saw that basically we had low volumes, high prices for the MR frigates as well, and so this is probably just tied to the seasonal faction warfare situation. Basically people are not selling MR or cashing out MR LP at the moment. Osprey Navy issue, also pretty much average, 63 million. Side Navy issue, nope, not seeing it. Low price at the moment. Stabber Navy issue. Slight uptick here. Bit of volatility from 36 to 43 million ISK on volume increase. Maybe. Would you ascribe this to the alpha clones? I might. It's definitely averages here are like 20. Average here is 115 and 72. That's definitely a lot of them causing the increase in price here. Keep in mind though, it is after reaching 36 million on a pretty sharp downtrend as well. So it may not be due to the alpha clones. Vexor Navy issue finally up in price, yeah, quite decently, up to 76 million ISK. That could be right. Very popular ship, extremely good PvE ship, probably the best moneymaker ship or one of the best moneymaker ships that the alpha clones will be able to fly. So I would say that this could be the one noticeable bump if we're going from like 65 up to 76 million ISK. Currently selling for 90 million ISK, bars are at 81 million ISK. I would say that this is probably tied to expected increased demand with the alpha clones. I think it's entirely possible, and I would not blame them. I think basically Vexor Navy issue, because of its drone capabilities, becomes one of the best PvE ships that an alpha clone will be able to fly. There may be one exception, and I do want to touch on it, although I'm not sure because it is a battle cruiser. But if we take a look at the Gnosis, and we do info requirements, you only need spaceship command level 1. So it's up in the air. I haven't tested it on CC or anything like that. If anyone knows, please feel free to post that in the comments. But from the skill requirements, alpha clones might be able to fly Gnosis battle cruisers, and of course that would put them in basically the highest potential ship. I think would be the Gnosis because of its unique capabilities. And so I do want to take a look at the Gnosis market here as well. We do see some high volume, some speculation pushing the price up to 82 million from a bottom of 46 million. Here's a lot of money that was made and lost already, then dropping back down to 47, back up to 58, 60 million. Where are the sellers at? 56 million, huge supply here with 293, whereas at 52 million. I think it's basically a bit of an unknown speculation here, that people think, well, if they can use the Gnosis, I need a stock of those, but if they can't use the Gnosis, I'd better get rid of my stocks. And so this is why we're seeing this volatility. I think it's entirely possible that alpha clones could fly the Gnosis. It is a unique ship, and it could eventually basically become their final target, right? A Society of Conscious Thought battle cruiser. Honestly, if I were CCP, I would allow them to use this ship. It is unique, it's really cool, and it's definitely a very nice goal for a new alpha clone character to work towards. So that is maybe something that I would need to do my research on. If anyone knows, please post that in the comments. Will alpha clones be able to fly the Gnosis? Because if they can, I personally think that it's a very good enticing goal to give an alpha clone character. Look at this awesome unique ship in EVE Online. It's also a battle cruiser that you as an alpha clone could fly. I would say go for that and enjoy PvE in an even bigger ship than the Navy cruisers. I think a lot of people might actually be very interested in going for that. So no, I don't have a Gnosis investment, but I would definitely like to be sure about whether or not they can fly that, because that could actually be a pretty major deal for the alpha clones themselves. And anyways, there you go guys, that's going to be it for this EVE talk, practically an hour long. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.